Hello dear viewers and welcome to my channel. My name is Mike and I'm converting a 1992 Volkswagen camper bus into an EV. A project as large as converting a car to electric naturally requires good planning. But I wouldn't be me if I would plan a lot, because everything turns out differently anyway. So I skipped the planning. Well, mostly. Back in 2017 I already converted a 1989 Golf 2 into an EV. I re-uploaded the video series from back then on my German language channel. I'll put the link to it right here and in the description below. Unfortunately, due to copyright problems, I had to mute whole passages of the videos because the music, which was freely usable at the time, is now suddenly supposed to be copyrighted. But back to the topic. I had the idea of building my own electric car at the tender age of 14, when we went through the topic of fossil resources at school and I was taught for the first time the real extent of our dependence on just one resource, oil. That's when little Michi asked himself for the first time, how people can be so stupid. Building my own electric car couldn't be that difficult. Then I don't have to go to the gas station anymore. However, there was no internet back then and I had a lack of technical experience. It was therefore only enough for a few drawings on my writing pad, much to the displeasure of my teacher. The years came and went. Michi eventually grew, got a driver's license and bought one or two crazy cars. There was no longer any trace of the electric car idea at that time. It must have been around 2007 or 2008 when an early 30-year-old Michi saw a video report on an insignificant internet platform called YouTube between clips of the Angry German Kid, cat videos or the Star Wars kid. In this video, a man made his own electric car out of an old Opel Corsa. Unfortunately, I couldn't find this report anymore, but I do remember that the batteries were mounted in plastic trays on the back seat and the hobbyist had to do an EMC test with the car. And very important was the DIN test finger, which the inspector stuck in everywhere to check whether live parts could be touched anywhere. As far as I can remember, the man even built the controller himself. Spurred on by this report, the old idea grew in me again.
Try to take over the world.
No. I just want to build an electric car myself. A few more years passed before reasonably affordable components were available on the market, because I wasn't such a freak even to build the controller myself. And the only commercially available electric car back then was Tesla's astronomical expensive Model S. My only plan at that time was to figure out how much the parts would cost, and when that was clarified, I simply ordered them and off we went. I ordered the stuff from Heiko Fleck, a German EV conversion pioneer from Bavaria. I knew his projects for years when the electrical conversion was still more of an idea for me. The choice quickly fell on a 96 volt system with a 28 kilowatt asynchronous motor, a controller from the forklift parts shelf, 30 Calp 180 amp hours batteries and a charger for everything from Zivan. Plus a small control unit so I can read how much power is left in the batteries and a few hundred small parts, cables and wires. In order to be roadworthy, the car still needed an electric heater, because there was no longer a water cooling system as with the combustion engine. I simply bought a 220 volt heating element that fit in the ventilation box and resoldered it to 100 volts. In addition, there was a self-made temperature control so that I only had to set the desired temperature, which the system then automatically maintained. I then spontaneously decided how and where to install the parts in the vehicle. I housed the batteries in a built-in box at the back under the trunk, but that was a mistake as I had to find out later. And I have no idea how the car got roadworthy in that technical inspection. But Michi from the past didn't know that at the time. Michi from the past just started building. Batteries in the back, motor and controller under the hood. In theory this arrangement works and nothing changes in the total weight of the whole car, because I removed the heavy combustion engine. But in practice you change the entire driving dynamics. The batteries, together with the box and the accessories, weighed a good 200 kilos, a weight that should actually be under the hood, but now there is only the comparatively lightweight electric motor under the hood. As a result, poor Golf suddenly stood up on the front end and laid flat in the back. My solution was to install the stronger springs from the VW Passat in the rear, which I shortened by 2 coils. But the TÜV inspector didn't like that at all. TÜV is the abbreviation for the German Technical Inspection Agency that checks every vehicle at a 2-year interval. Fun fact, in the 80s there was an electric test vehicle, originally from Volkswagen, also a Golf 2, in which the problem of the heavy batteries was also compensated by Santana springs in the back. Santana was the notchback variant of the VW Passat. But the argument did not convince the TÜV examiner. So the man from the TÜV gave me the tip to install a coilover suspension and screw it up all the way at the back and down all the way at the front, in addition to a few other small things that still needed to be changed, and the Golf received individual approval and the coveted stamp. Of course, I also had to show the papers of an inspection by a qualified electrician to the TÜV examiner. Electrical testing and TÜV acceptance together cost around 340 euros at the time. By the way, you don't have to do a separate EMC test for this setup, since the forklift controller already has a sample EMC test. Full of joy, Micha then registered the electric Golf the next working day, to the amazement of all the employees at the registration office, and it was driven, tested, and meanwhile optimized and further expanded. The self-made fan control was given a recirculation function so that the electric heater doesn't always have to warm up the cold air from outside, but just had to keep the already warm indoor air at its temperature. That saves again a lot of energy. Depending on the driving style, the range was almost 120 kilometers in the summer and 90 kilometers in the winter. Perfect from my daily commute to and from work. And since I was still working in shifts at that time, I was able to charge the car with my own solar roof power whenever possible. The car initially wasn't made for more, but quite quickly we also made our shopping trips with the electric, and even on the weekends there was an electric buzzing when we explored the vicinity. Because the quiet gliding was so much more fun for all family members than the rough driving style of the combustion engine. The conversations that arose when angry fellow citizens wanted to point out to me that I should kindly not block the charging stations with the old car were also funny. When I then explained that it was an electric car, of course, everyone wanted to know how something like this could be possible. I was very happy with my perfect electric car, until that autumn day when a slightly sloped road was a bit damp and there were a few leaves on the street. I had to step hard on the brakes because of a truck braking abruptly in front of me, but somehow the Golf didn't slow down. I grabbed the steering wheel and saw the impact in my mind's eye, but fortunately it stopped inches from the truck's massive rear bumper. What just happened? At the next opportunity I turned around to drive back and take a closer look at the spot of the incident. There were 2 pretty skid marks, each with a small pile of leaves at the end. That was the result of the completely changed driving dynamics, as I mentioned earlier. Anyone who knows a bit about car brakes knows that the braking power of a car is distributed between the axles around 80% at the front and 20% at the rear. But because I shifted the center of gravity so far back, there was hardly any weight on the front wheels, with the result that these blocked completely, but already started to slip from a few leaves. In the years that followed, I radically changed my driving style. A lot of safety distance and a very careful driving at the slightest sign of slippery roads. That worked out well for a year and a half, until one morning on the early shift, a young girl drove into the back of my Golf. In front of me, a car stopped, again very abruptly, at a pedestrian crossing. With a good safety distance, I myself was able to brake in time, but the woman behind me couldn't. Boom! And the entire rear section of the Golf was cold formed. Luckily, the batteries weren't affected and I was able to continue my commute. The insurance company of the person who caused the accident only wanted to reimburse me for the current value of the old Golf 2, which I refused because it was a special vehicle. So the Golf was examined by an expert, which then resulted in a good sum for me from the insurance of the woman. The Golf could not be repaired or have the crumpled trunk pulled out by a car body mechanic. It would simply have been too much effort. And since the next TIFF appointment was near, which the Golf wouldn't have made it through anyway, I decided to remove the electrical components and scrap the car. Well, that was the 2-year lifetime of my electric Golf, and from then on I had to drive gas guzzlers again. But the beautiful quiet electric driving has gripped me ever since, and hasn't let go. Despite its only 36 horsepowers, I even left behind the BMWs and Audi A8s when I took off at the traffic lights. That's because electric horsepower is immediately available at the start, while an internal combustion engine first has to get up to speed to perform at its best power. No comparison at all. Anyways, already back then I had in my head to electrify my camper bus, because electric is simply more fun. However, I wanted to wait until there was a fast charging system and a bit more horsepower available for the hobbyist. That time is now, because luckily there are now many manufacturers with EVs that can be exploited. And that's why now is the best time for that next project of mine. So if you like this video and you want to see how the electric bus project takes shape, then hit the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe now. And you should quickly hit the bell icon so you don't miss any videos of mine anymore. Share the video with your friends, that would help the channel and the project a lot. And feel invited to my Discord server. You can find the link below in the video description. I will open up an English section there, not only for the camper conversion, but also your questions about Europe, Germany, Romania, and anything else that you like to discuss of my videos. My name is Micha, and I wish you a nice time until the next video here on my channel. Bye!